Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Town of Pendleton's July planning meeting. We do have a couple members missing tonight, but we do have a quorum, so we could have a roll call. To my left, Cheryl.
Carol Rainey Hunt,
Tim Pritchard.
Kyle Icor.
Carol Hannah,
Andrew Holloway.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. Could ask the board to review the minutes. June, start on your tablet. Recognition to
I think I have
prepare.
one edit.
Okay.
I believe I was here. That's too many there.
Yeah, I think you came in right after we
You
started.
come in after we
Oh,
start.
so it doesn't count.
We'll give you partial
No.
credit.
Can't be late.
Fine. I thought, I read
No pay.
all this, I'm pretty sure I heard.
No.
No pay.
Yeah, we'll add that edit.
Thank you.
Any other comments, conditions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 7th meeting.
Thank you, Carol. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kyle. All those in favors of the June minutes as submitted, please say aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Okay. Moving forward, old business. West zoning change from rural residential to heavy industrial for Thomas and Pamela Watson, Mowich, I said Munch. Engineering, PC, and Starlight Leasing.
All right, so I'll just refresh your memory on, this was a continued petition from June for Blue Star Concrete. And the site is at 8775 700 South. Sorry. Zone rural residential, it's 8.8 acres and it's currently just for farming. So I'll let Brian go into the updates that were made for the comments of the planning commission last month. But just to make sure you remember that this is a dry mix batch plant that includes an office and maintenance building as well, wash bays, aggregate storage, and then employee and truck parking. All of the documents that Brian submitted for the update are in the G Drive folder. Some of them were too small to put on here, so if you want to follow along as he goes. So next. This is the updated site plan. So I'll let Brian walk through this.
Thank you, Anna Rose. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Munch. Munch Engineering offices at 4000 Clarks Creek Road, Plainfield, Indiana, 46168. I get the privilege again tonight to speak to this board in regards to Blue Star Ready Mix, which is a proposed concrete batch plant on 8.8 acres on 700 South. Some of the documentation that we have presented is enhanced from last month's, if you will. So if I may have you go to your G Drive quick, there's a narrative. And let me remind you that this is a dry mix concrete batch plant. Looking at a total of about a $6 million investment. We'll speak more about that in a second. 20 new employees from the local area. The site plan, again, we'll talk about more in a second, as presented. We've had landscaping, whatnot. And we've also made some enhancements to our building enclosures based on some of the questions that came from last month's discussion. If you go to the narrative quick, I'm not going to bore you with some of the other items that we've talked about during last month's presentation, unless we need to. But I'd like to direct you to page 2. What we have done is added some economic analysis. We have reached out to our certified accountant and asked what kind of economic benefit this may be to the Pendleton community. As I mentioned, it's a $6 million investment, $4 million roughly in land improvements with the concrete services, new grade work, retention, so on and so forth, and about $2 million in fixed equipment assets that we're looking at. Looking at the local tax rate, that's on an annual basis, approximately $57,000 annually to the local community. And the key thing to understand on that is that our impact on the community is very minimal. Obviously, we will need fire service, hopefully not. We will need police service, hopefully not. But we're not bringing, 600 homes to the community, which have an impact on the schools or the infrastructure as well. Also, the question that came up last month was the salaries expectation. We're looking at hiring 20 some employees in that range of $75,000 to $100,000 in payroll on an annual basis. Again, when you look at the county taxes from that, that's about $87,000 of new revenue coming into the county area. We estimate conservatively, each one of those employees plus the ownership of the company would invest $500 on a weekly basis, buying gasoline, buying snacks, buying fast food. So again, that's another $600 some thousand impact on the community itself. Then as we get further into the commitments, we are committed to making improvements to County Road 700 South. And we're estimating that to be around the $150,000 investment that we're making in that roadway. Obviously, we benefit from that road, but so will the others as the development in that area continues. If you go to page 3 of that document, the narrative, you'll see the commitments that we're voluntarily making as part of this proposed development. Nothing has changed except for the addition of item number 7 on that commitment level. So again, items 1 through 6, we talked about last month, no heavy traffic through the town of Pendleton, no operation on Sundays or major observed holidays. No residual concrete return will be transferred from the site, not crushed on property like we do at other facilities. We'll limit noise to 65 decibels at the property lines with the commitment of rebuilding County Road 700 North. Then once public utilities are available to us, we will convert to those public utilities. But right now we're proposing on-site utilities with water and on-site septic. Item number 7, there was some discussion last month versus this being heavy industrial. That kind of opens up Pandora's box, right? So what we've done in working with your staff we have gone through the allowable uses chart. And I think that's part of the supporting documentation we provided on your drive. It said these items we are going to exclude from our development, right? They're allowed in the HI zoning classification, but we will not allow this land to be used for those. As you read through that list, some of them are no-brainers. Some of them make some sense. Item A, automobile and vehicle storage, basically no junkyard, no salvage yard in that area. And that includes any outdoor storage of damaged vehicles. No salvage yard facility, no landfill, no airport, obviously, right? That's an allowable use in HI, but we don't have land to do that. And no recycling center. So we went through the list and talked to the homeowner, or excuse me, the property owner, and said, we need some restrictions on this. And they are in agreement, voluntary agreement, to restrict to this list in moving forward. And obviously, as we move from this discussion into hopefully approval at the town council level, legal councils can work together to get that formalized so that these commitments are a legal binding document versus a testimony at this hearing tonight. So that's the narrative I would like to review quick. Talk a little bit about the site plan itself, kind of refresh some memories here. Yep, stay here. Thank you. 2 entryways, 700 North. This entryway primarily for the ready-mix trucks as they come in and out, staging in this area. This is the actual plant itself. Conveyor moving aggregates that are stored outside, loaded into bins, conveyed inside this building. Part of the discussion from last month was also enclosing our dry powder transfers. So we do have an appendage off the side of the building at this location, and we'll look more specifically at the building elevations in a minute. But all our powder transfers are done internally to the structure itself. We do have a proposed maintenance shop, a 2-bay maintenance shop that has a frontage onto County Road 700 North. The doors to that maintenance shop would be internal to our property itself. Return concrete area that we said would be emptied out of the trucks, let it cure for a short duration of time and load it into dump trucks and taken off site. A washout area so the trucks can wash off before they go down the roadways. A propane tank farm, then a fuel tank farm on the property itself. To the south of the property is our retention basin. I think we discussed last month that there is with the boat storage being developed on this side of our property, they do have the retention basin at this location, and they do have a drain that goes off-site to the south that we're in negotiations with right now to partner with them on that installation of that off-site drainage. We do have sediment basins on each end. We anticipate sheet flow. Let's talk a little bit about landscaping quick before we move forward. There was some discussion last month regarding the buffering requirements on the property lines. We were able to achieve a level 1 buffering at this location and on this location. We've enhanced the landscaping along our west property line. If you recall, during the month of June, there was some demonstration from our neighbor regarding dust. So this is an elevated mound with heavy tree growth and shrubbery to help control not only what we're going to control by mechanical means as well as by enclosures, but also any residual dust that may happen. We do have vegetation in place to help that as well as to dissipate noise. The surface itself is all concrete. We will commit to having water truck on site to help down any of the fugitive dust that may be generated just for truck traffic in and out. Then the aggregate storage bin that's outside will also have a water source to it to keep the dust down. Plus, it benefits us from during the summer months to keep our aggregate cool as it gets introduced into the batch plant itself. If you go to the next slide, quick.
Real quick, Brian,
Oh, sorry.
how tall is that west mound in relation to the south and east?
So this is we're trying to get it as tall as possible. Right now it's shown to be 3 to 4 feet in height. And these are 1 to 2 feet in height in elevation. And we are open. I mean, this is a conceptual site plan. Obviously, we haven't gone through a lot of detail yet. I think we included in our packet a preliminary landscape plan showing vegetation counts and whatnot. But we are open to making a more of an evergreen type look along that west line. So we have year-round green, if you will, along that west property. Go to the next slide, please. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the maintenance building itself, but this is what the maintenance building will look like from the roadway. We have made this compliant now with the ordinance with the architectural features required, such as windows, height, materials of construction. We do have a translucent panel that's elevated above. This is a lower 2-story addition, and this is a little higher in the background. Office areas, break area. To the front side, again, this would be fronting onto 700 North, then our work base accordingly inside. We do carry the translucent panel around the 2 elevations. So you will see the same look on the east and west elevation as well as the north elevation. And then the south elevation as well. Go to the next slide, please. This is where we made our biggest impact over the last 30 days. If you recall, the previous submittal had 2 silos sticking out of the roof of this structure. Those silos were in that 85 to 88 foot range. We had an enclosure around them. So it's the same basic floor plan that we had before, where we have our loading zone at this location. We have our silo at this location, our aggregate dispensation bin, our dispensary bin, then our admixtures and some of our ancillary support equipment inside, office area, break area, storage area. Then down here is our unloading area where we would back the semi tractor trailer into a doghouse, make the connection to unload the powder. So it's done inside under negative pressure. The biggest impact is we changed our silo type. So we were able to go more of a octagon, or not octagon, hexagonal type silo versus a round cylinder. And we're able to keep that silo now inside the enclosure.
Thank you.
So we went from an 88-foot height down to a 70 feet 10 inches, 71-foot height with everything now inside. So when you look at the building itself, we now have clean lines on the facility with everything being closed. And kind of give you an idea of what that means. If you're familiar with that area, Shelby Concrete has a facility off to the, I guess it'd be off to the northwest from our property. They have a very similar building height. So it kind of gives you an idea of what you're now looking at versus what we had before. Again, we have the translucent panels, we have our concrete wainscot along the bottom for aesthetics as well as for protection of our building. I want to focus kind of on this area as we go to the next slide. So if we go to the next slide, please. This is a cutaway, right? So this is not what it's going to look like. So I want to be very, very clear. This is not what you're going to see, right? This is a plant that's outside. The same manufacturer who we're buying our plant from, but I said we went more to the rectilinear type silo. That's what it looks like. But I want to pay particular attention to this area right here. That is the dust collection system that we discussed in great detail during the month of June. To where this bag house, we pull the dust up into, and we have the, I think it was over 800 square feet of filtering space or filtering that backloads back in, or as we recharge them, it backloads into the silo itself. But if you look particularly at this location, right, in this area right here, this is a truck that, mind you, will be inside our building, pulling into the loading zone with this rubber belt enclosure draped around it, with this cyclone, or excuse me, this bag house, this dust collection system directly above. So as air is pulled in, as the truck is pulled in, air is pulled in around this area, and it's sucked up into this giant vacuum cleaner, right? What it boils down to. Again, mind you, this is done inside. So not only do we have our primary dust control, but we also have a secondary dust control with the enclosure of the building that we have around us. But I wanted to share this slide to kind of show you the change in silo. This is the round silo that we were presenting last time. This is the rectilinear silo now that fits inside the building. It cuts our about 18 feet down or 17 feet down in overall building elevation. But this dust collection, I wanted to show how it's shrouded and how we pulled our trucks in. There's nowhere else for the dust to go but up into this collection system. Can I go to the next slide? So with all that said, right, I'm not going to bore you with a lot of the other details that we discussed last month. You know, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. But we provided an area tonight with some voluntary commitments. You know, we also provided an area on who Weber Concrete is, who Star Ready Mix is. It's a family-owned business. You know, this would be their fifth concrete batch. They're coming to your community, making a $6 million investment in properties. The economic return of that, we touched briefly on. I think there's some additional supporting information that shows kind of the build out over several years. We are voluntarily committing to the set of commitments that we discussed earlier during the narrative part of the discussion. We have worked with staff. We did have a very open discussion with staff to talk about some of the potential variances, obviously. And we are more than willing to move forward with those variances as needed. But we've now brought our maintenance building into compliance with the architecture standards. We have addressed the height concern of this board during the month of June meeting. We've showed the economic value that we can bring to the community, and we're committing to these commitments with the reduction, the primary new commitment being the reduction of how the heavy industrial property would be used or could be used with the granting of this zoning petition. With that, be more happy. I know that was kind of condensed, kind of quick,
No, no.
but I'm being conscious of time. So if there's any questions, we want to have an answer.
Thank you, Brian. I think you hit on all those subjects we asked you to from last week, particularly the height to get that inside the building. That's appreciated. Any questions from staff?
What would so you're gonna reconstruct County Road 700, what cross section would that be? Just a local? The 700 reconstruction out to State Road 13 for trucks to use?
I would think it would be a local because that's what the thoroughfare plan says. So
But it would be a thicker cross section for truck weight. I mean, I'm just looking at our standards and they say that industrial entrances have A cell, D cell and blisters, but I don't. I know that that's beyond this rezone, but I'm just considering.
Yeah.
Thinking about that.
I'm just looking at right of way as far as what would be, it would be the local limit of what it's actually built to,
I think as long as it's a heavy cross.
a heavy cross section, yeah.
And obviously, you know, we estimated to be $150,000 investment in that roadway. And again, that's from our east property line all the way to State Road 13. So we are anticipating a heavier section of asphalt. Maybe not so much because traffic does not warrant Excel decel. Potentially. Potentially.
That's a hard word to say. isn't it?
Depends if I get my plant operating or not. No, but yeah, I hate to buy concrete from Shelby, to be honest with you. But we have worked very well with a company called DeLello and Sons, who's based out of the Westfield area. Our facility in Noblesville has a very similar private drive approach or a public roadway approach into that plant site. And I can't remember the exact section of asphalt that we put in, but it was in the neighborhood of like 8 to 10 inches of stone, 8 to 12 inches of asphalt on that, and it's held up. That was done in 2005 with some minor patching, but it's held up extremely well. And that's our busiest plant site that we're operating trucks at. So we're very much committed. You know, we don't want to throw away money. We're not going to Band-Aid
You
this.
don't do it again.
It benefits us much as it benefits the community. So we are committed to do it right.
And the connection to public utilities, should there be some kind of time frame, like 36 months or something, once they're available?
Oh, once they're available, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something reasonable, it doesn't have to be right away, but
Sure.
just to
Uh,
kind of pin that down.
I would say within 24 months would be appropriate.
I will
Um,
update that.
And that's full availability.
Yeah,
of
once
the
they're,
service.
once it's available.
Anyway,
Back to the road, what was the width you were dimensions? We adding shoulders or what in that estimate, what's in that estimate?
we were anticipating a 30-foot wide roadway,
Okay.
20, 30-foot wide with a 2-foot stone shoulder
Okay.
on either side, then roadside ditch. Now, the roadside ditch and that section, we have not surveyed that property to see what that truly entails. But the $150,000 number was based on a 28-foot wide road,
So what's
2 foot of stone shoulder, which gives me overall width of 32 plus roadside ditch.
And then the entrance. look like? Those trucks, yeah, I need to see that.
So, yeah, I'll go up on, I'm sorry.
Necessary.
Go to the site plan, please. So we do have sufficient radii turning into the facility. I believe those are 45-foot radius. As shown, so they are sufficient. Right now, we don't see the traffic count on County Road 700 North to warrant full XL, decel, acceleration type lanes. The way this is being proposed, the eastern entrance would be the primary delivery point for aggregates, employees, maintenance deliveries, those type of items. And this would be our primary entryway, the heavy use during the day with inbound, outbound mixers.
So as soon as we have any development to the east. So,
I'm potentially willing to, I gotta talk to my owner, to my client,
yeah,
but
right.
I'm willing to potentially offer up maybe some additional right away at those entryways
Yeah.
to facilitate. Obviously, the issue that I have here is I don't own this property.
Right.
And I'm not too sure what the boat company has volunteered as additional right away along 700. But we're open to those conversations. I mean, obviously, we're in the zoning phase today. We didn't want to get the cart in front of the horse necessarily, hate to spend a lot of money on engineering and not make this board happy.
Well, I would say, so we've got to do that now. In anticipation, we have to see something out there. Traffic's gonna be heavier. So we have to assume that there's a heavier traffic. Place now, because once that development happens, it's too late.
Oh, I understand. And I'm willing to commit to addressing that at the site plan review.
Yep.
Right? I'm not, again, I haven't done any engineering on this, so.
Sure,
Right, I'm
yeah.
just bringing up the issue.
Well, understood.
Did the boat center plat, do they right away?
Yeah, they just wrote us a right away easement.
Okay, so there is room to do the reconstruction.
Hmm.
There is room to do the
Yes.
reconstruction on the
Yes.
south side of the road.
Yeah, we took in. It's like just a half right away there, so it's just the third
And
On
that's,
the south side.
on the south side.
and that's my concern is because obviously on the north side of this road
Edge of pavement.
is not Pendleton jurisdiction. So any improvements that we were looking at have to be on the south side as we move forward. And that's gets a little, especially since this piece is not part of the zoning commitment and or improvements at this time.
But that's your seller, right? So you can work with them to get anything.
Potentially, we can modify the purchase agreement to have that discussion. And like we talked about last time, full disclosure, we are in the negotiations to buy that piece don't know what exactly we're gonna use it for, but I think we currently have a first right of refusal for that piece of ground in place as part of our negotiation for the 8.8 acres.
So part of your impact.
And again, I think there have been some discussions with staff about I think there was an impact fee potentially available for the boat storage as well, since they would also benefit from the improvements of 700 North. Yeah, those are details, Scott, that we're open to. You know, we would love to sit down with staff and have those, but not getting the cart from the horse time.
Well, I appreciate the additional buffering because we don't know what will be coming along these other sides of the property. And honestly, because we have no control over what would be to the north or to the west, because that's not in our jurisdiction. Right now, and when I drove by there the other day, you could see a lot of heavy truck to the south there from that other, it was not a pretty view. So you're gonna be blocking really a lot of ugliness, really.
Yeah, I mean, the salvage yard, obviously, or the scrap yard, or however you want to refer to it,
Yeah,
the metal recycling center. Those businesses tend to be a little bit more high
yeah,
story.
they had a lot of junk back there. Now, we had talked last month, though, about if this project would not work that the zoning would go back to ag. Is that,
What we discussed would be a more efficient route would be to limit the uses that would ever be allowed on site with that zoning,
okay,
which is what Brian listed as the uses that, you know, if they sold in 10 years would never be allowed.
and you feel
Yeah,
like
I
we've
feel
got a good
comfortable with
list?
these being eliminated
Yeah.
from the HI list. And I mean, we can still maybe have some further discussions with council about fallbacks, but I think they get real sticky
Okay.
with how they have to be written and agreed to and things like that. So this is kind of a next best thing.
And part of the supporting documentation we provided in your drive is the actual chart of allowable uses. And we highlighted items that would still be allowed on the property. Some of them go without saying, you know, like farm equipment repair, you know, some of those type of issues. An ATM machine would be an allowable use on the, I mean, so some of the common sense stuff, I think, for potential list setting, I think is good. But Rose mentioned, in working with legal counsel, your legal counsel, this is the recommendation they prefer to go forward.
What's this use considered in the chart?
That's how I have it.
Heavy manufacturing.
Concrete specifically is in there. So.
No. So we have considered this in our philosophies as heavy manufacturing. Right? We're manufacturing a product, and we will have outdoor storage. So
As far as department staff comments, I don't have anything additional to last month. Update the commitments. Brian had sent me, with the truncated land uses.
Questions? Any questions from the audience? Neighbors? Nice job. Thank you. Appreciate all the extras. Absolutely.
appreciate the opportunity to share.
Yeah. Okay. Entertain motions for PC 0607-2023-02 with the outlines, topics he's addressed, the 7 items plus the additional commitment to hook to public utilities in 24 months.
Within 24 months.
And notes on the easement right of ways, which I know you can commit to that.
So number 5 would be full reconstruction and surgery building. Is that better?
That's James 5.
What is it?
Full reconstruction.
Full reconstruction? Okay, of County Road.
So I just had a question. So the concrete batch plant is permitted in this zone. So if it gets rezoned to HI, could they propose a building that has an outdoor tower on it? And we don't have any ability to say it needs to look like what was presented.
I think that, I mean, if it was an outdoor tower that was tall, right?
Well, I mean, if it met the, I just, you know,
Like another batch
we've been presented with a certain product and I want
don't
want it
build
to
a
be
concrete
very,
plant.
I want it to be substantially similar to what's been presented.
Okay.
And I think, I'm not legal counsel, right? I'm a little life engineer, so I'll tell you for what it's worth. But the documentation presented is the binding documentation you're basing your decision upon, which is an enclosed structure. So I don't think we can revert back to the original structure because you're basing your decision upon the testimony tonight and the documentation tonight.
Well, I'd recommend go ahead and make that, what you just said about the finished product being substantially similar to the documentation and verbal commitments made tonight could be a condition added to the recommendation that the commission would make.
So I can add that to the.
Let it be number 8.
Yeah,
Let it
number
be-
8.
That's
Would that
Yeah.
need to go to BCA if it was something other than?
Well, the height restriction.
The height will have to go.
that
The height.
scale anyway?
And yeah.
Yeah.
Changes.
I mean, we're in agreement with that additional commitment, that's substantial compliance to the documentation presented.
So that'd be number 8.
It, just FYI, I do have some photos of our recent facility that we did down on State Road 74. Or Interstate 74, I'm sorry, that I can share with the board if you'd like to pass them around. But this is a similar product that is under our jurisdiction, under our control, that we just put into operation earlier this year, or I'm sorry, late last fall.
Nice reference there too.
So I'll show you.
Oh,
I'm sure he knows already.
She was talking about how big the truck is.
I'm like, I always. Right, my hair is-
By the time anything else is developed, their reference will be good.
It'd be just fine.
They'll be just fine.
Comments, questions? I think we're all in agreement, Brian and Anna, so I'll make the motion to approve PC 0607 2023 02. All additional commitments, including number 8 item. And commitment up until 24 months. Thank you, sir. I'll have a second. All those in favor of 0607 2023 2 as stated with the recommendations, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
Yes, yes, both the representatives are online.
I'm not saying anything.
Thank you very much.
Guys.
Mhm.
Have a good one.
Okay, first item on new business is request to amend current parcel zoning to have an additional approximately 3.1 acres of GB general business zoning and minimally shifting current multifamily MF2 and light industrial LI zones to accommodate this increase in Heritage Way. This is for JD Kids LLC via Aaron Carl T Incorporated.
Okay, so if you remember back in April of last year, we rezoned this property on State Street or North Heritage Way. It doesn't have an address yet to include a couple different business and housing zoning. It's 74 acres. It's still currently just being used as a farm field. So they are looking to do 2 things tonight, amend their zoning and then accept our first commercial primary plat on this property. You can go to the next slide. Currently, general business is at about 5 acres, multifamily at 22, light industrial at 32. And then they have an area of rec and open space at about 5.7. They are proposing to just shift that around to allow for larger general business lots along State Street. They were a little shallow in the beginning, so they'd like to move to have these bigger lots here. So general business will move up to 8.2, multifamily will go down to 18.6, light industrial will go up slightly to 33.8, and then that rec and open space parcel area there doesn't actually need to have its own zoning. It can just be incorporated into the parcels it's attached to as common space. I think we haven't been able to find the information yet, but I'd assume it's probably a 30-foot easement off of either side. It seems like a pretty large ditch. It might be less, but it's not buildable area. So that is just the basics of that. It's a pretty simple petition, but Aaron Carl from TD is online if you have any questions. Is Shri on? No? Okay.
Okay, so the general business is just getting pushed,
Yeah, to allow for bigger lots.
and then the other, the multifamily and the light industrial is just changing. Like the light industrial is picking up some of the common area.
Yeah, and so then the multifamily,
Yeah.
sort
I
of,
think
it's
before-
shifting.
Yeah, so it's essentially,
It's the same zoning districts.
Yeah.
As what was approved last year.
Yeah.
Except getting rid of that record open space area. It's just not necessary. And it can count as common space towards anything that comes in there. Or for the entire plat. It really just be up to whoever develops it.
Before, that was just one lot on each side of North Heritage Way.
For the general business, it was originally 6 lots.
6 lots?
Yeah.
One of the problems we've noticed, well, what's
Aaron.
Aaron? One of
Yeah.
the problems We've noticed, Aaron, is Bryan Drive there to the east. Being able to come in and out off of State Street there of 38. Particularly close to the roundabout. I think everybody has some concerns with that. Especially turning left out of there. Or turning left into there. We're doing a lot of work in town right now. There's a median RH in the west of there, down to Wolfie's in the center. I just don't think that's gonna work with Bryan Drive in the center. I think we'd probably like to see the entrance to lot 1 and 2 come through the roundabout, back down Cherie Way, and then you can still come in Bryan Drive and go back out Cherie Way to the roundabout.
yeah.
I do know, talking with Shri, that that might kill the deal for the potential client that he's got going in there. I know they want as much access as possible to gas station. I don't know if they would be all right with just a right in, right out. But I know their goal was to maximize the availability of access to those lots.
I guess I could see a right in or right out. The board would agree with me on that, but not across traffic.
We're talking about.
Yeah, the Bryan Drive.
The Bryan Drive between lot 1 and lot 2.
So the Stereo 30 or State Street here is a or an arterial, so it's supposed to be 100-foot right away. So it should be a 50-foot dedicated.
Yeah, we had discussed
It looks like maybe they're just using existing potentially. I'm not sure why it's not 50.
On which one?
On the what you're calling State Road 38, not having a 50-foot half dedication per the thoroughfare plan.
I thought we were adjusting that to have a 50-foot.
I'm just,
We were matching what was already done on the, for the roundabout, what they took, and I believe that was, and we took it out to 50-foot, if I remember right. What does it show on?
there's a 46-foot dimension down there on the south line, but could be an old label or something maybe.
Okay.
And then Bryan Drive is only 44 foot. Is there a reason to have less than 50 on Bryan?
That was up to Shree and his designer that was working on that. That they needed the space for the two different lots, so they were trying to do it where they could, and they talked about even putting the sidewalk across the property itself, which I don't know if it makes much difference one way or the other. But they're talking about using the sidewalk, putting it inside the property rather than in the right of way. And this is just kind of the preliminary layout of what they want to do. When we get into the secondary is only going to include lot 1 and 2 for the first round. Because they have no idea what they're going to need to do with the other lots just yet. They're still working on selling them, so.
What do they
This,
want 1 and 2? What are the businesses? 2 would be.
Uh,
there.
two's gonna be a gas station as of right now. And they don't know for sure what 1 is, but they're looking for a business with a drive-through, so I'm assuming they're looking for fast food of some sort.
I guess if you guys can, as Commissioner right in and right out, as a matter of,
That's, you said that's support, is that supported by the access?
Yeah,
Control.
that goes above the standard.
So only people going westbound.
anybody eastbound will have to come in through the roundabout.
Everyone
Come in
else
the back
goes,
way.
yeah.
Which they're gonna go through the roundabout.
Through the roundabout alley.
That also helps, I mean, even regardless of if it's a right in, right out, or a complete movement, it's still a secondary access for fire and police. And it's a plus.
And you're okay
And
with, you're okay with the reduced right away on Bryan Drive?
Sure.
And then we also discussed with Shree and Aaron, that Bryan Drive, it would probably be the standard 50-foot, but that multifamily area to the north, continuing it so that it's four-way, kind of typical intersection, having more than one entrance into the multifamily area. So there could be another access road up by the common area, something like that, for whenever that multifamily ends up. So that would be a continuation of that.
That doesn't, that doesn't scare me as much as Bryan Drive. That just seems. Close. To the roundabout.
And with right in, right out, there is a little bit more flexibility of where exactly you can space this because it has that extra safety feature. So if the petitioner would agree to right in, right out, they could potentially move this around slightly if they wanted to. But it would be like right on the roundabout, obviously, but it has a little more flexibility, safer for the access.
Cheryl, do you have any comments, or questions? thus far? Nothing really changed back with you folks here.
No, I think
Percent.
general use is probably better.
So, you know, if there's no further comments or questions, this is just for the rezone, the primary plat, which is where you live. And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, if the board is going to put a condition of right in, right out, I believe that would go on the primary plat. Jeff?
It could go either way. It could be it could be added as a condition to rezoning as well.
Oh, okay. So if
We
that's
put it
something,
tonight.
or any other commitments, but we are gonna go through this for primary planning as well, so if there are other things that you'd like to have the petitioner commit to, there's that as well.
And again,
Keep that in
this extension of Don Court to eventually, that, right now, it just ends at that point. If they would try to make that,
Yeah, I'm
Entry
sure that
point,
would definitely
we
be
would have to
another
do-
area to enter into the
But we-
multifamily in some way.
but that, we're not saying that that's okay at this point. We're just saying right now, it just ends there.
And then these will all develop as blocks or lots. The commercial subdivision process and platting allows you to have end user flexibility. So if one person or a conglomerate wants to develop, you know, the entire block of 3, 4 lots, 3, 4, and 5, they can do so all at once with the site plan. Or if it's sold off piece by piece, we'll make sure that they are cohesive and not haphazard as far as the way that they connect or cross access or things of that nature. And of course, we can always bring petitions, site plans before the board.
Hearing no other comments or questions, any?
I think I went through, yeah, my analysis already. Zoning acreage fits minimum, maximum, even with that shift. No threats to public safety, and the commitments from the 2022 rezone in April will still have to be adhered to as well. This, in addition to any that you propose this evening.
I'll entertain motions for PC 07052023-01 with the note added tonight about the commitment for write in or write out only. Brian Drive.
I'll make that motion. Do I need to repeat it?
Thank you, Carol. Do I have a second? I'll second it. All those in favor, PC 0, the right number here now.
So,
PC 07052023-01, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Okay, second part of that is,
Yep, so same property. You know, it's nice we could use just the same site plan because it has everything we need on it, but this is for the primary plat for the same property. So the board would be looking at how you vote is general acceptability of the layout, assurances that have been made for providing utilities, so water, electric, sewer, et cetera. And then subdivider has taken all reasonable efforts to mitigate the impact of the proposed subdivision on public health, safety, and welfare. So you're basically just looking at the overall design and the 3,000-foot view, and then when they get into site plan, that's when we're at. So, like I said, things can deviate just very slightly from this primary plat. If it's not earth shattering, we can deal with it in site development. Like I said, if that Bryan Drive shifts a little bit, as long as it's within compliance of the access management, you know, there's a threshold for that, but you're just looking at the overall layout as it is right
so my question is, there's been concerns with Wolfies as far as drainage into that field. Are they gonna run their drainage back to this common area?
Aaron,
Well, what was the concern? You cut out.
It was my understanding, did they issue a stop work order on Wolfies
For the site.
for the site only
Yeah,
to address the drainage?
correct.
So they're gonna have to come through this property to drain it? Have you been contacted, Aaron, on this?
I have not.
Okay, Wolfies is just to the west of lot 5 for your information. It's actually on your drawing.
That's the old restaurant there.
Yes,
Yeah.
see where it says Wolf Property Management?
Yep.
Okay, that's a restaurant that was tore down and reconstructed as a new restaurant by the name of Wolfies. So their drainage is in question from the county. Correct me, I don't think they had an adequate drainage plan at the time of construction. The county issued a stop work order on it for the drainage, is that correct? So for them to drain, Aaron, they're gonna have to come on you somehow, I would assume. Is that right,
Okay.
Scott?
Yes, if you look at aerial photo, it looks like it does sheet drain back at that.
Right.
For sure, but it does sheet drain to the back as far as we can tell. I'm sure there's some that does sheet drain to the west. Back being to
There's a possibility and a potential for shared stormwater drainage. That could
Well, that's
also
my
be a-
point. I think he needs to be in contact with Wolfers before they get too far down the road.
Certainly, yeah, I can.
Well, I
connect them.
mean, that'd be part of the. Something that we decide here as far as cooperation.
Sure. I didn't want him to get a tenant for lot 6.
Yeah.
Wolfers not know where to go. Are you following with us, Aaron?
I am, and I appreciate things that make sense.
Okay. Yeah, I would probably recommend you to get with Hannah on how to get a hold of Wolf Property, whatever it's called, Wolf Property Management.
Yeah, I can certainly do that.
Okay.
That's my only concern. Unless the board has others. Anybody else have any concerns?
So that. Consider that. Jeff? Can you hear us?
Jeff Graham?
Yes, I can hear you, and I'm fine with what's been said. You've accurately repeated what the drainage board's concerns are, the county level.
So how would we state that part of the condition is to have what's reasonable, cooperation with the Wolfies property on drainage, or, I mean, how?
Yeah, reasonable cooperation with that development in compliance with all town and county ordinances.
That sounds good.
Well, yes, but don't we have to go a step further than that? I mean, that's obvious. I mean, how do you,
Say to require that happen.
yeah, require a cooperation or what?
Yeah, I was thinking of adding that as a condition. Yes.
Okay, so how would that sound? What would the legalese be? What's the verbiage?
The as a condition for the recommendation, the petitioner shall cooperate with the neighboring parcel with regard to their drainage issues and concerns at both the county and the town level. And that if they don't do that, obviously they're not complying with our zoning, potential zoning change.
I think just a long way to go. Wolfers.
Yeah, so it's a complicated issue.
As long as that's in there.
I personally don't think
Yeah, I
that
know.
they're producing more runoff because.
I know, it's just.
Yeah.
County. Any other questions from the audience or? Yeah,
Yeah, no, I'll go ahead and give my analysis. So again, the function of planning staff is to analyze the petition against our reported ordinances and plans. So based on that, the proposed parcels fit the minimum maximum requirements for size as well as lot frontage. The right-of-way dedication for roads is adequate as discussed earlier. The primary plat doesn't pose a threat to public health and safety. As I mentioned earlier as well, all developments from this point out will go through site development review, whether by block or by individual lot. And then the primary plat, if approved, will be contingent upon town council approving that rezone. So Jeff, I don't know if we need to make that part of it, that it's contingent upon the rezone, since that's step one, but we're just trying to do it all in one fell swoop, or if that's just an obvious.
I don't think we need to add it, because if it's not complied with, there'll be other enforcement authorities that will step in on this. So that's just like saying fall of law. That goes without saying.
Okay. So that's all I have for analysis. And then, I wrote down what Jeff said as far as if that's a commitment we want to have on the primary plan.
okay, Eric, no further questions. This primary plat with the additions noted on the cooperation of drainage and Wolfers and JD Kids as recommended by council. Entertain motions for 0705-2023-1 primary plat as submitted with you. Notes. Dash 02, I'm sorry. 02.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Cheryl. Do I have a second? Second, thank you. All those in favor of 02, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight. I had an employee pass away on Thursday. We had a viewing tonight, so.
That's all right.
But,
Sorry to hear that.
but thank you for all your conversation. I was greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be in touch for next steps, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
Yep, thank you.
I only have 3 amendments, folks.
Seconded that.
Oh, I did.
Okay.
Edit it. It's quiet. We want to vote on those tonight, yeah, since we're a little short-handed.
Oh, yeah, they're nothing earth
Okay,
shattering.
all right.
Nothing wild. Oh, I know that.
What would we do without you, Neil?
You probably asked about that. All right. So first one I have, this is something I actually noticed most recently. Childcare centers are prohibited in a general business zoning. We have a few that are in general business right now. And we also allow childcare centers and churches, which are allowed in general business. So it's something that was in planned business. It's a pretty common commercial use. You see them a lot in strip malls or in small commercial plaza type things. They have plenty of parking and access and, safety features, I suppose, because it's a commercial building. So it would just depend on whoever is renting or purchasing it to make sure it meets, any sort of school health codes or standards on the interior. But it's just something I noticed that seems pretty typical that's just missing out. We do allow it in institutional, obviously. That's kind of the schools, hospitals, churches zoning. And then we also allow it in neighborhood zoning, which is a really limited number of parcels and a limited number of places that zoning can fit or would be proposed anyway. So a lot of general areas don't have that ability. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that document's so big and that
Yeah.
land use matrix is
Yeah.
so large. I'm sure it was just something that might have just got looked over, which is totally fine.
Sure. All good.
Okay. All right, and then Kyle might be able to speak to this a little bit more. than I can, but at the last BZA meeting, we had a variance for allowing a accessory dwelling unit to be occupied by a renter. And the primary structure on the property was also occupied by a renter. Our UDO does split that hair that the primary structure must be occupied by an owner. It doesn't allow for renter and primary and renter and accessory dwelling. We only allow accessory dwellings in certain zones by right. They have to meet all sorts of standards. And I think that was probably just put in there, like I stated at the BZA meeting, because it's something the town has never really done before. But we haven't seemed to have any issues with it. So Kyle, I think you and Jen both said splitting the hairs on that might not be a
Yeah,
good idea.
differentiate between somebody owns a house. I mean, it just didn't seem like we needed that.
Right. I mean, it still has to be maintained. It has to meet the standards as
requirement.
such. And just like if an owner was living there. So it does still have to be a single family home in a residential zone. So there is that contingency on it.
A built.
Yeah, house, single family house. Well, and ADUs can be attached or detached, so it's almost like I don't really would make any sort of difference, but it's just like if you have a renter who's renting a chunk of your house, what's it matter if there's not one?
Yeah.
I think it was just something to kind of test the waters to see how it went when we got the new UDO, and it hasn't caused an issue. Instead of going through that whole variance process, allowing that for extra income. Any issues?
No.
Okay.
We have is there a site in mind for this?
I'm sorry?
Is there a site in mind for this?
No, we had a petition come before BZA that was requesting this and was granted it.
What was that petition then?
It was on Westwater.
So does that affect you when you're renting then? You could rent to two different people then?
No,
There's only 2 units total,
Correct.
the
Yeah.
primary unit and the accessory.
Yeah.
So-
no, I don't know. No problem.
Okay. All right, so if no changes to that, I will amend as written. And then, I know we were looking at dwelling definitions last time because I brought up that our definition for single family currently states an unattached home. And we do have houses and they're getting more popular to have a shared party wall, but there's still a single parcel owned by a single person with a single one family residence. So I added dwelling, single family attached, and then I will change the other definition to detached single family. So what I have here is, I Googled it, I found a couple different sources and put them together. It seems more of a side-by-side type house, because one on top of the other is more of a duplex or a condo. It can be 1 or 2 stories, but it's one family and one parcel and one home that shares a wall of some sort.
So this definition doesn't mention that it's separately owned. That's the
Okay.
the critical element there, that it's not a condominium or an
Mhm.
apartment complex, it's a unit that happens to have a shared wall.
Okay,
So I don't, is there somebody to insert that in there?
yeah, absolutely. I'll just put somewhere in here where it's appropriate, and is a separately owned unit. Okay. I guess I could say dwelling or unit. Dwelling.
Yeah.
Anything else? Good.
Just
Okay.
3.
Just 3. I know.
know.
Whittling it down. Okay, so I guess you'll just vote on the amendments as discussed. Yes,
All those in favor,
you need a motion and all
no,
that.
I'm sorry, we need a motion to accept the amendments to the UDO as noted. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the changes to the UDO as noted, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, thank you. Okay. Thank you all for coming to meeting. Meeting adjourned.